Now, there's one thing you might have noticed I don't complain about. Politicians. Everybody complains about politicians. Everybody says they suck.
Yeah!
Well, where do people think these politicians come from? They don't fall out of the sky. They don't pass through a membrane from another reality. They come from American parents and American families, American homes, American schools, American churches, American businesses, and American universities, and they're elected by American citizens. This is the best we can do, folks. This is what we have to offer. It's what our system produces. Garbage in, garbage out. If you have selfish, ignorant citizens, you're going to get selfish, ignorant leaders. And term limits ain't going to do you any good. You're just going to wind up with a brand new bunch of selfish, ignorant Americans. So maybe it's not the politicians who suck. Maybe something else sucks around here. Like the public. Yeah, the public sucks. There's a nice campaign slogan for somebody. The public sucks. Because if it's really just the fault of these politicians, then where are all the other bright people of conscience? Where are all the bright, honest, intelligent Americans ready to step in and save the nation and lead the way? We don't have people like that in this country. Everybody's at the mall, scratching his ass, picking his nose, taking his credit card out of his fanny pack and buying a pair of sneakers with lights in them. So I have solved this little political dilemma for myself in a very simple way. On Election Day, I stay home. I don't vote. I don't vote. Two reasons I don't vote. First of all, it's meaningless. This country was bought and sold and paid for a long time ago. And secondly, I don't vote because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around, I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent people and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on Election Day, am in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with. So I know that a little later on this year you're going to have another one of those really swell presidential elections that you like so much. You'll enjoy yourselves. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure as soon as the election is over, your country will improve immediately. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome Manchester to Ward 13. And my guest today is State Rep Joe LaChance.
Thank you.
I don't think that, I agree with Carlin to a degree, but there are some good politicians.
We try.
That's why I have you on my show.
Thank you, sir.
And incidentally, this isn't the last Ward 13 show, but because I'm going to have a last hurrah for Ward 13. But I've gotten rather tired of concentrating on city politics. And if that has to do with the local politicians, I don't know. But I'm going to rename the show, and it's going to be like what they used to call in the 60s on PBS, an omnibus program. And I've asked Joe to be one of the regular rotating guest hosts. And
thank you very much for that. I look forward to it. I think we have some pretty good debate and discussion when we have these shows.
Well, you'll be having. I won't be here. I just want to do it every other week or so. And other person I was talking to, well, Mike Lopez, our friend. He used to be the head of the Sweeney Post, but we can call him Mr. Veteran. And I think he's going to have a slot where he does a half hour about veterans, and then we'll have like the recovery community. We'll have the second half hour, like Hope, New Hampshire, people like that. But to give some more voices, because frankly, politics in the city has gotten so ridiculous, I would have to have a show like that Amsterdam's Hour to cover it. Incidentally, we'll have one last go at the. If you've ever seen I did a Mansterdam news segment, and then I tried replicating it here, but it was. We live in a world beyond satire. My last thing is I went to the inauguration. John, can we have slide number 3?
Sure.
Slide number 3, where we were informed that God himself gave us Ted Gatsas for a 4th term. I guess maybe God was up there in Ward 1 fiddling with the machines. But magnanimously, if we can have Ward 4, if we can have slide 4, John Eric. Magnanimously on inaugural day, he had Keith Hirschman release Joyce Craig from the stocks. So that's the end of our satire segment. And I do have a few stinky Gerards, but I want to move the show, which I think I'm going to call Manchester Today, towards the more over the boundary towards good taste. So leaving Mr. Gerard out, because Little Mel recently posted a video of herself in a hula hoop, and it was so evocative of Stanley Kubrick's movie Lolita, of the Nabokov novel. I wouldn't even touch it, Joe.
You know, I like the fact that, we need a good politics show. We need a good, honest show. And I like the idea of what you're proposing. I think it's going to, I think we will benefit the city going forward by concentrating a little more on global, if you would, issues, right. Meaning New Hampshire-wide-ish, regional, instead of concentrating just on city politics. So I commend you. I think you've made a good decision. Yeah,
the personalities. Well, it's like I told one person, everything I wrote and revealed and everything. And behind the scenes, I'm known very well for my predictions, and a lot of them came true, but nobody listened, so what the hey. The idea of politics anyways is to focus on service, not just giving certain politicians, revealing the absurdities, and let's forget about that for today. Joe, one of the reasons I wanted you on is to talk about the New Hampshire Health Protection Plan.
So,
if you can explain that to the viewers, and then, okay.
The New Hampshire Health Protection Plan was the original quote-unquote Medicaid expansion plan that was passed by the legislature some years ago. It's up for renewal this session. There was a sunset on the original law to kind of, as a circuit breaker, where do we stand? How have we done? Where do we need to make changes? And it's up for renewal now. The federal government was paying Medicaid expansion bill 100%. They have now trickled down. Eventually, it's going to go down to they pay 90%, and the state's on the hook for 10%. It was no secret. I serve on the board of directors for the Elliott Hospital through my church. And
Brookside Congregation.
Brookside Congregational Church is a great church in the North End. And we have a seat on that board via the last will and testament of Mary Elliott. I take this position pretty seriously because there's a couple of churches that have a seat on that board. And we get to oversee the church. Are we doing the right charity things? Right. Are we doing, I get to see, yes, do I see all the business? Absolutely, I do. But I kind of take my role very differently. Now, I think it's important for people to know I don't make a dime. I don't get a cent. I don't make mileage. I don't make per diem.
So the board is this isn't a corporate board where you can make a living off. This is in the New Hampshire way
this is a nonprofit organization.
Voluntary, right?
It's purely voluntary, and if I left this post tomorrow, my church would vet a candidate, and then we would present the candidate to the Elliott, and then they would be either accepted or declined. And basically, I was elected by my church to serve on this board. So, for those folks that know me out there, I've taken a beating on social media, unfairly, unfairly, by the way,
outrageously so. I'd say. Because let's when we talk about the congregational, I'm a member of the First Congregational Church.
Sure.
I'm actually descended from Puritans from England that came here. And, we were considered very intolerant then. But people generally think of the Congregational Church as rather liberal in a way because of, comparatively speaking. But I would consider it that. About social issues and that.
I would too, and and I'm a libertarian-leaning
You're
Republican.
a libertarian leaning Republican who is a state rep. So you bring a certain balance and a certain clout too.
Sure.
I would think in Concord and in Manchester.
Absolutely, and it's important to be involved. I do. I take it I take my role as both state representative and representative to the Elliott Board of Directors from our church. So let's morph this forward. Over the past couple of years, I've looked at the numbers coming in at the Elliott. Now, we are the biggest city hospital. We do an awful lot of charity care. However, what was happening in the city is folks would be coming into the emergency room and clogging up the emergency room.
Yes.
And just it wasn't good for everybody, even the end consumer, because somebody's got to pay for that visit.
Right. For part of the debate that went back to the Clinton era, and if you were a little older, Joe, it would go back to Jimmy Carter and putting the brakes on Ted Kennedy. We were having a health care debate then. And when I was in 8th grade, there was Richard Nixon and Ted Kennedy were going at it. But one of the biggest factors in healthcare inflation is the fact that people that don't have health insurance go to the emergency room. That is their primary source of healthcare, and it is not economical, is it?
Well, it's not, and
we pay for it.
Some of the argument is, well, I could just go to the health. I can go to any hospital emergency room, and they have to treat me. And you know what? That's right. But what is the ramifications of that? And I think everybody pays for that. So, I sponsored this legislation because I've seen the positive impacts that New Hampshire Health Protection Program has had for many people in our community. I wanted to find a responsible way because Obamacare is here. It's here.
Right.
We can't change it at the state level. For everybody that's coming after me on social media, and I can't believe you support Obamacare, I need to let you all know, and everybody know, and you and I may disagree on this. I'm not a huge Obamacare supporter. Now, the caveat is, the law is the law.
Right.
So,
vetted by the Supreme Court of the United States.
So what
right.
do you do at this point? Of course, you continue. If you want to champion that law or change that law at the federal level, we continue to make those contacts.
Right.
But we have to live within the confines that what we have now. Now, reality is this state, for every $1 that we send to the federal government, we only get 70 to 73 cents back per dollar.
Right.
So, in my mind, I was thinking, well, why would we want to lose that money? We're already a donor state as it is.
Right. Let's point out something. It's so fascinating, And these numbers are from when even Judd Gregg was senator. I remember writing an article, and it was 71 cents. And at the time, The Economist, the conservative news magazine, that's published in England, but it's like a Bible.
Sure.
It's the best news magazine in the world. They was talking about the welfare queens of the United States. We all know Alaska is a welfare queen. Sarah Palin's Alaska.
The bridge to nowhere.
They're about $3.40 for every dollar. But I was surprised that Arizona, which isn't exactly hurting for money, was getting something like $2.50 because it's from John McCain on down to their congressional delegation. They're just experts at milking the federal cow, and so it's so funny. And these states are all like technically, we hate the federal government, everything, but they'll take everything they can. It might be from when they were territories or whatever, but they have their hand in our pocket, and so I agree with you about that. The fact is, we're not even at parity for what we send to Washington.
And let's get to the most important piece of this is we have people that need health care. There's people that are sick. There's people that have cancer. There's people that have every disease from A to Z that don't have a way to get this health care. Now, I think it's very important to realize that the New Hampshire Health Protection Program affects the most neediest of the neediest. I think we're talking about one person making $14,900 a year.
Right.
We're not talking a lot of money here. So,
Joe, I'd also like to say I testified for what was called that Medicaid expansion as a veteran, because we were talking earlier before the show started, the Veterans Hospital. Once again, I actually had one of the big whistleblower attorneys from the United States on talking about the VA scandal. And it goes back in the 90s, John McCain, rather than give more money to the veterans, decided we'd take money out of what were then, we used to be, until 2000, the Democratic states were the red states. But now we're blue. You know, they flipped it for some reason. The media, Joe. But
no,
John
say it isn't
John
so.
McCain took money out of New Hampshire, New York, and everything, takes it down to the Sun Belt states on the basis that population is growing, but they wouldn't give any more funding, so they took money from the Northeast. And our hospital suffered greatly from that. But the irony again about Arizona and John McCain is that's where the latest scandal came out of. But getting back to this, if I can, because I tend to wander my brain. And you get back to this. One of the things is a lot of veterans won't go to that hospital. It went through a severe cutback in personnel and everything. A lot of women that have suffered like PTSD from sexual trauma and whatever, they won't go to the hospital. And I think the hospital's improved a lot. But when I was testifying, that is one of the factors. There's a lot of homeless veterans that won't go to the Veterans Hospital. And this expansion helped them get care. We're talking about the neediest of the neediest.
Sure.
And
And
people that did pay into the system, not just with tax dollars, but with their service, too.
Going on to, I know we are going everywhere with this conversation, but as you know, I'm a disabled veteran. I try to avoid the VA in Manchester as often as I can.
Right.
Now, the physician, medical doctor I have there now is a decent guy, and I think we're okay. But the entire system, the system's rigged. I was on the patient-centered care committee in Manchester. I was taken off of that committee. I was taken off of that committee because you know why? I am who I am, and I voice what I voice.
Yeah.
The interim director, who is no longer there anymore, I brought up some data discrepancies, we'll call it, and the next month I was removed from the patient-centered care committee.
I remember when you were putting that together a couple of years ago, yeah.
So let's make no mistake.
But the thing is about this bill, you talked about the neediest of the neediest. Apart from any ideology or that, it's helping people who need help, and the money's out there.
You either take the money
Right.
or you don't. So you literally, we have two options.
Right.
The option is let it sunset and let the 45,000 to 46,000 people who are now covered go out and fend for themselves. And if anybody believes that you can do that at no cost to society, then I'm sorry, you don't understand economics.
The hospitals like the Elliott, but it's the hospitals like Elliott and CMC are required to give care to anybody that comes in the emergency room.
Correct.
Right. And so when those costs are going to be passed on to paying users. So if a person, an employer, or somebody's thinking of coming in New Hampshire, if you're having healthcare cost inflation fueled by people that aren't covered, they might think twice about coming here.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a major factor that was always driving healthcare reform, health insurance reform, but they always call it healthcare reform, is that businesses were having employers a difficult time with medical cost inflation, health insurance inflation. And part of it was that so many people are uncovered, and it's the most costly way to deliver medical care.
And I think it's important that that I agree and disagree with you. The overall Obamacare plan, I think, could be done better. What I don't want to do, we need to take care of our needy. We need to take care of our less fortunate. I think most common sense people would agree with that.
Right.
I think most most God-loving people agree that we need to take care of the most vulnerable in our society. And at what cost do you do that? So we can't change Obamacare. So what I've offered as a bill, and I'm hopefully that this is going to be the bill that we move forward in the New Hampshire legislature, is if the federal government is going to give us 90 cents on a dollar, an actual check coming back to us, then why can't the stakeholders, who would be the insurance companies, the hospitals, and those type of people that are benefiting from this care, not want to pony up and help participate and to get that kind of money back? Now, when we get that kind of money from the government, not only do we get healthier people because they're getting care, we make jobs. We have there's a lot of things tied to that money economically, that if we don't take advantage of that 90 cents on a dollar, and if I can show the taxpayer where it's not going to come out of their pocket per se, New Hampshire wise, because I got to be honest with you, I will fight against my bill if the insurance companies and the hospitals and the stakeholders don't pay that 10% share, because fundamentally I don't believe Obamacare is the plan, but it's the law of the land, and I've offered.
You have to work within the framework of reality. I was just reading Foreign Policy, where both the Republicans and the Democrats don't want to have a realistic foreign policy. But there, and
sure,
now we have a debacle in the Middle East that for years we didn't want to have. But you have to work within the reality, the framework that you have. That's one thing. I'm a legal editor. You meet a lot of people that make many claims of what the law is, but the law is the law.
Correct.
And you'll find out, we can talk about issues like that later, but you have to work. You're a realist in this, or a pragmatist, but you have your moral framework too.
My moral framework makes up a very significant portion who I am.
And you represent your church too.
I do. And you know what? I work really hard for the folks in Ward 1. I've had some emails that are, thank you very much for taking this head on. I've had a couple of emails that said, I can't believe you're taking this on head on. You're always going to have the plus and minuses, but when you're looking to do something for the greater good of all, and I'm trying to find a way to make this palatable for everybody, because that's what we have right now. Obamacare is the law of the land. Now you have some people in my party that it's my way or the highway. Yep. It's no Obamacare or nothing. Or it's no Obamacare and we're going to do everything to kill it. And I'm not so sure that's the healthy way to go. Every party has its extreme right, extreme left.
Yes.
And you have it. And I'm mixed party, half Republican, half Libertarian. Some people call me a piece of Democrat. You can call me whatever you want. I think for myself, and for the people in Ward 1 that contact me, they know I've filed a couple of bills that I may not agree with, but if my constituents want me to file a bill, I'll be honest with them. I will file the bill. You come defend it. But there's only 424 people that can introduce a bill to law in this state, and I happen to be one of them.
And you actually have quite a record of successful bills, don't you?
I do.
How many did you get passed last?
So I filed, I either prime sponsored or co-sponsored 41 bills last year. Right. And at last count, 9 bills were signed by the governor. And
that's an excellent, when you think of the bills from 400 state reps, some of them are very odd too. But that's an excellent record.
Extremely proud of that, and what that shows is I just don't sign on to a bill because I want to sign on to a bill. What's the likelihood of this becoming law? What does it make sense? Is it good for New Hampshire? Is it good for Manchester? Is it good for Ward 1?
Can you get bipartisan support? Can it pass?
Because a lot of people argue that there's too many Republicans talking to the Democrats and the guess what? That's how the sausage is made. compromise. I think we're missing compromise. I heard an interview this morning on. I was listening to Fox Business, I believe it was.
I can listen to Fox Business, not Fox.
It was
Fox
the
News
business.
Gets my blood.
It was the
pressure up.
business, and I had heard something about the Republicans and Democrats are getting together too much, and they're actually compromising too much. And frankly, if you look at the Democrat and the Republican Party, except for some of the social issues, there's some commonality there. And anytime you have commonality, you need to find the right solution for everybody, because you're not going to make everybody happy. And I found that out. Listen, it's been, and you've seen this on social media, because of my support for this Medicaid bill, New Hampshire Health
Right.
Protection Plan. I believe I've given a responsible way for New Hampshire to pay for it. I believe if the stakeholders don't pay for it, the taxpayer shouldn't have to.
Right.
I believe that we can't change the law federally, so we might as well make the best of what we have. I've had people say they're going to primary me. They want to take me out of office. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
That's
It's politics. So you're not going to get me upset. Bring it on. My people know. They can call me. They get a hold of me. I will do work for them. So this is the right thing to do, I believe. And I truly believe because there's a few bills in now, I really have an inkling that that this is going to be the bill that we move forward for the next couple of years.
Right. And getting back to bills, there was a Republican that told me he is a Republican, and I would say Reagan, the Reagan wing of the Republican Party. Because I ran for state rep in 2014. He was saying, John, because I'd known him for years, why I never went back there. He just did the one term. You work on a bill, and you have to go across the aisle, because you don't always get those majorities like the Republicans had in 2010. You work on a bill, and you get ready to vote, and we have a caller. I'm going to take the call if I can get it on. Hello, can you hold on for just a second?
Sure.
You make a bill, and then somebody from my party, one of the crazies would say, and it could be on the other side too, I object. Why are you working with the Democrats? You're a rhino. And he says, it was so frustrating.
Sure.
And then the bill would fail. So to get that many bills through. Hello, caller. You're on Ward 13 with John Hopwood.
Hey, John, I'd like to ask your guest a question. I was in the military in the 1980s, and I got some, disability from. I got injured on. I get an OTH from I failed a urine test for marijuana, and for years they said I can't get any help from the VA. Do you know if there's been any changes since then?
Caller, you cut out on the beginning of your call. I heard something. I was in the military in the 80s, and then you cut out. I think that might be an important piece to this pie. Could you just repeat that? And I apologize.
Okay, yeah, I was on an aircraft carrier, plane handler on the flight deck, and I got tinnitus from it.
Okay.
And I've been to the VA, and I understand that they can't help me.
So thank you for serving. You're sitting here with a couple veterans talking with us as well. I would be more than happy to help you.
Why don't you give out your phone number?
I will. Let me do this. Let me give you an email address. Joseph, JOSEPH, .LaChance
Okay.
at AOL.com, or my cell phone number, and I'll give you that as well to leave me a message, 370-1767. And my fellow veteran, I will help you at any capacity to get you pointed in the right direction, because I think you may have been led down the wrong road.
We're going to talk.
I went to a recruiter's office back when Bush was in office, and they said even the president couldn't help me out.
Well, there's a lot of changes, and when it comes to filing for disability. When I filed for disability in '89, it was everything was a thumbs down.
Correct.
And there's been a lot of changes recently. But give Joe a call, and I'll post.
Yeah.
I have a website.
I only had a few months to go, and remember when Reagan said just say no? Well, I failed a urinalysis test, and they put drug abuse on my discharge.
Oh,
Thank
you didn't? Yeah.
Oh boy, let me give me a call. Let me see. Let me take a look at that. I can't promise you anything, but at least I could point you in the right direction, or at least assist you in getting some help with that.
And
Yeah,
that,
I got tinnitus. I got bad tinnitus. I've had it for 35 years, but it's driving me nuts.
and you can't get that. You can get. You are allowed the Veterans Hospital. You get care at the Veterans Hospital.
They told me I couldn't. I don't know.
Oh.
So it's an eligibility issue, and I think that
Yeah.
if
Joe can you can
yeah.
hook people up.
You know
to
what, without
handle
getting
it.
into details, do
I'll
this,
get
call
over
me.
Joe, and thank you, Joe. I appreciate your information.
Yeah.
Hey, I have one
Went to the
question.
VA, and all they did is gave me a form to fill out and walked away.
Well, you need a little help.
Thank you.
Let me help you, fellow veteran. We'll help you, okay?
Take care. Speaking of medical marijuana,
Well,
are we
now-
through with talking
Hold on.
about-
You're on a topic that I
let's
happen
get
to
a
know.
zoom in on this, John.
There
John,
we
are
go.
you there?
Oh well.
Probably having lunch.
That's okay. Oh, here we go. The natural plant. That's what we do. I do own New Hampshire Cannabis Consulting. I am an advocate for medical marijuana in this state.
And
I'm
you
an
filed,
advocate for legalization.
And you filed the bill, but other than legalization, didn't you file a bill? Oh, tell us about the bills you filed.
So last year, one thing New Hampshire needs to keep in mind that I filed a decriminalization bill for marijuana.
What's happened to New York? I haven't been following the news.
Their dispensaries just opened for
So
medical
that's just
marijuana. Just
medical marijuana
medical,
dispensaries,
correct.
okay.
So let me paint the
Yeah.
the scene. We've got Maine. They decriminalized in 1976. They're 4 days away from legalization. We got Vermont. They've been decriminalized, and they're like a day away from legalization. We got Massachusetts, who has a referendum coming on in November for legalization.
How about Oregon? Is that?
Oregon's legal, Colorado's legal, Washington's legal, Alaska's legal, and we have 23 other.
Colorado.
We have 23 other states that have medical marijuana. Colorado's the
England.
big one.
Well, England's got medical marijuana. Yeah.
So last year I filed a bill for decriminalization because we're on an island, New Hampshire, and our governor, who and listen, I'm ex-law enforcement, and make no mistake, I am not against law enforcement. I am pro-law enforcement, but I am a member of law enforcement against prohibition. I don't believe we should be arresting people for marijuana. In New Hampshire, a 17-year-old kid who gets arrested for a joint could conceivably spend a year in jail and have to declare on their federal financial aid form that they've been arrested misdemeanor-wise for drug use.
What is that? What's the effect of that?
Potentially disqualifies you,
misdemeanor?
because it's drug related. So, for the folks that continue the reefer madness bandwagon, we're hurting kids. Law enforcement, listen, the rank and file cops, men and women who are out there enforcing day to day in the cruiser, in and out, making arrests, they don't want to be dealing with the guy who has a little baggie of some green vegetative matter. You know what I'm saying? But what happens is you get the chiefs of police, and not all of them, and you get the associations, and you get policing for profit.
Well,
And-
isn't that because of the drug enforcement? Nixon got rid of the Narcotics Bureau and the Drug Enforcement Agency.
Sure.
So federal money is tied up with busting people, and marijuana, for some reason, is what class drug is it?
Schedule 1.
Which is absurd because
Schedule
is
1,
heroin
basically, Schedule 1 drug on the FDA schedule means there's no medicinal purposes.
a complete
Falsehood.
Right.
It's a complete falsehood. Listen, we need to go back to prohibition. We need to realize
Yeah.
that big pharmacy back in the day realized, well, one plant can take care of 10 problems, but we have one pill, but you're going to need 10 of those pills to take care of one problem. And the money was there. So the federal government brainwashed us.
You know what's interesting? I want to get back to, because we're going to talk about, you actually taught me about the opioid receptor in the brain. I didn't know there was a cannabinoid. We'll get back to that, but hey, John, you still there? You still with us?
What do you need, John?
I want you to zoom in on my Donald J. Trump tie. This is a ritual we have. I have a.
Why are you wearing that tie?
There we go, Donald J. Trump. And then I got to show you. That's actually chocolate on it, but I say it's the blood of somebody that tried to get over the. John, come on! You're not no double chins here.
I'd be much happier if you had it "I stand with Rand Paul" tie.
No, this is my father's tie.
Okay, well, you know what?
Remember, he used to be.
If it's dad tie, I can't even talk bad about it. You just told me, you gave me some inside info that I can't go.
From 1999, when after Bill Clinton was impeached, when he went out of office, he was the most popular president, more popular than Eisenhower. That didn't work too well. And remember, Trump was a liberal then, up to about 2009.
9?
Oh yeah,
is that right?
pro-abortion.
9. I'm actually going to give you.
We can talk about Trump. We'll be hosting Matt Connarton's show, so we can talk about Trump.
Okay.
That'd be a good topic.
Fair enough.
But
so, you want to talk about PTSD? The law.
No, just this one thing. Do you know where the real move in the 1930s came from against marijuana? The 20s. That's why I bring up Trump. William Randolph Hearst in California. The drug marijuana was considered the drug of choice of Mexican Americans, and
jazz
and blacks, and he was a racist, and he helped lead the war on marijuana, because in World War II, servicemen were growing marijuana. My father told me this too. In San Diego, you'd have a little plot of grass. I'm sure it's not stuff like you can get in Marin County or up in Humboldt County, but it would do the trick, right? And actually, the what do you call the chief medical officer of the Navy, the U.S. Navy, said, "Leave him alone. You know, this is a harmless thing." And you know,
it just
can you imagine in World War II,
it amazes me.
Marijuana.
We look
but it was racism. That's part of the reason why it was prohibited. But what I'd like you to get to, you can finish your thought, and then we go to the opioid versus the cannabinoid and law enforcement. But what were you going? Finish
Fair
your thought.
enough. The bill I have going.
The ideas are archaic behind this.
They're very much.
But even I shared a few of them. I supported the decriminalization when I ran. But you taught me a lot on one of the two shows, a couple of shows that you've been on.
Well, listen, I'm not afraid to tell my story, and that's going to lead me into the opioid part. But one thing I think it's important, I need to, and this is very important, folks, if you're listening out there, I believe, and I'll know Thursday, I've prime sponsored a bill in the legislature that would add post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) to the medical marijuana law. This bill is probably the most important bill to me out of anything. I filed 81 bills in 2 years, either prime sponsored or co-sponsored. This is probably the bill that is the most important to me, that will make a big difference for people that are in need. As a veteran, and this isn't targeted just towards veterans. There's people, whether you're a rape victim, some sort of trauma that you've been in.
Right.
This isn't just targeting veterans, but and I think people need to know. The governor stripped PTSD out of the bill. We originally, when I say we, I talked to the legislature in 2013, wanted PTSD to be one of the qualifying conditions for medical marijuana. And there was, I don't know if it's buyer's remorse or just trying to make a deal to get it done, but PTSD was stripped from that bill.
You know why? The VA claims, you go on the site about PTSD, the VA will say there's no the people associated with the Veterans Administration have done no research on whether marijuana has any effects.
Pretty self-sustaining, isn't it?
So they never did any research.
They can't. The federal government won't let them.
Oh, that's
why.
So
pretty self-sustaining to say that argument, right?
Because you want to know something? People will ask somebody like a vet or anybody with PTSD, well, why do you take oxycodone? There's something associated with PTSD. I can't remember the psychologist. They call it psychache. It's more than just physical pain or anything. There's pain related to the condition itself. You know, we don't like to think, particularly Anglo-Saxon countries, it's even in our law, that psychological pain is the equivalent of physical pain. That's actually embedded in our law. But a lot of these people suffer what's called, they call it psych ache, that there's really a psychological pain. You say, well, you take oxycodone or some heroin, it takes that pain away. And wouldn't it be better if we have an opioid receptor and a marijuana receptor? These things are in our bodies since these were two drugs that we evolved with. These were the drugs we used. And, of course, like you said, the pharmaceutical industry, they make money out of all these SSRIs and stuff. But I think you said in one of the shows, isn't it better to treat this with marijuana, which has, rather than some, didn't you say oxycodone is like synthetic heroin,
so
morphine or something?
Thank you for leading me into
Okay.
this. Listen, I'll tell you right now.
I'm going to tell you, in England, they treat certain conditions with OxyContin spray. You know, they don't have as much of the Puritanism as we do. But you bring that up at the VA, like if you're in this pain or something. That could be true, but that's not going to happen here.
But back in the day, listen, make no mistake about it. I'll tell you right now, the VA got me addicted to OxyContin,
Okay.
oxycodone, fentanyl. I would leave the VA 250 pills a month, to the point where I'd be getting, and this is a result before I had my surgery.
That's for your physical pain.
For my
right?
physical pain. In addition to PTSD and everything else that might be there, my physical pain. I have a cannabis card, New Hampshire cannabis card now. I qualify. I have my card. And
For your physical.
For my physical.
That means you're able to go to a medical marijuana dispensary, but somebody like me who has PTSD, I can't get a card.
You cannot right now get a card. Now, let me explain to you. The VA, for a couple of years, just wanted me to go away. I was in a lot of pain, a lot of stuff going on at the VA, and it was so easy for them to just, hey, you have another 200 pills, another 200 pills. I got so addicted to oxycontin, oxycodone, and fentanyl that they sent me to a pain management clinic because I personally, now that I know what I know, I think the doctor was getting nervous. I was starting to take some pretty lethal doses of this stuff. I thank God every day that I'm not dead. And I'm so happy for my family and myself that never happened, because I come from a very good family. My family knew that my next step was heroin. Yeah. Now, when you say opioids...
And I'm saying that is a... People think heroin, they're just doing it for fun or whatever. I'm just talking about a certain class of people. I don't know why everybody takes heroin, but that would be a step.
So what happens with OxyContin, oxycodone, fentanyl?
Can I just ask you something?
Yes.
It was treating your physical pain, but you think since you do have PTSD, it was probably also treating that.
Not only do I think...
Yeah.
I
so
know.
That is
because,
of
course, I didn't have my cannabis card at that point. I would make frequent trips to Colorado. My sister lives in Colorado. I mean, of course, legally I would be able to participate. However, yes, people who have PTSD, people who have never been addicted before don't understand. And opioids no longer work at some point. You build up a tolerance where you could throw in 6 pills in a 75 milligram fentanyl patch, and you're not going to feel much. So then that would make you drink a little more. That would make you start thinking about, well, how can I get that? And it's not, you physically need this. It's not mentally need this. Your body, when I detoxed myself in a basement with the caring of my family. Yeah. You feel like hell.
You didn't go to a hospital?
No. No, I did it on my own. I had the flu. We called it the flu. And you drink a lot of fluids and you suffer for a week. And it's just probably the worst I've ever suffered in my life. And I thank God that the synthetic opioid, which is known as OxyContin, oxycodone, fentanyl, I got that out of my system, and I can proudly say I've been clean for years. That is the reason why I am such an advocate for medical marijuana, and cannabis products. For my pain, I can't sleep at night all night. and I'm talking just physical pain. We're not talking, for the folks that have PTSD, you can't sleep at night. You wake up, you might toss and turn. I've heard stories. You hit your significant other in the bed.
Oh yeah.
But by no
tear it yourself.
For whatever that traumatic incident is, I can tell you, oxycodone and opioids kind of filled the void for a little bit. But then you're physically addicted.
Right.
For medical marijuana, if I need to take a tincture or a cookie or I prefer not to smoke, but if you had to take a quick smoke to get your mind back in check and just to calm you down, to get that anxiety out of you.
Right.
And then what happens for the PTSD person who can't
Because
sleep at night?
PTSD,
What does it do the next day?
PTSD and anxiety. We're talking about anxiety disorders. They go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand.
Right.
And you know what? Somebody like myself in pain, who is not afraid to hit a beer once in a while, your mind can play tricks on you. And, I am so thankful that I get off that cycle of oxycodone and alcohol. Because there's a point in my life where I may have taken 6 or 7 OxyContins. I may have taken a fentanyl patch and maybe a half bottle of Jack Daniels. That is that's a prescription for death. I'm not proud to say I did that. But what I'm proud to do is tell you I've learned from it,
Right.
and I'm going to help other people. I'm not afraid to admit it.
One thing, somebody we both know said to me, "Boy, you are talking." I started talking about PTSD. It's not easy, and he said, "Oh, you're wearing that like a badge." No, it's somebody has to talk about it. And even when you hear that, then you won't want to talk about these things anymore. And when you're telling me a story, and I'm up at the VA and you're in group therapy and stuff, you're telling stories. There are veterans that they don't even know they have PTSD. They come in for anxiety, or they've been drunk, or they were disruptive. And in Massachusetts, and I think in Nashville, you have veterans courts, because they realize veterans have a higher incident of these type of incidents. And right. So you're talking about a thing that a lot of guys are hitting stuff like, and gals,
absolutely,
oxycodone, and they don't even know why. They don't even know why.
It makes the pain go away.
And it makes the pain, not just physical pain, psychological pain, which, like I said, in our system,
when you can forget, when life is bad,
yeah.
when life is bad, and you can forget life for 3 hours, it puts you in a better place. I'm not advocating.
Yeah, right.
I'm not advocating for it. But what I'm saying,
it's
you
dangerous.
forget.
Yeah.
And so I understand why veterans and post-traumatic sufferers are doing what they do.
But let's get to it. We have about 10 minutes left. But marijuana is better. It is better. And it will reduce the use of opioids. Do you believe that? So it is, when you come to law enforcement, it has benefit. See, I didn't even know about that.
Not only do I agree, I know.
People on marijuana don't, I've known potheads. I indulged a lot at Boston University. I still would have a short-term memory, I think, if I hadn't. But, people aren't running amok on marijuana like Reefer Madness.
I would never, ever advocate either driving drunk or driving
stoned
or anything like that. But I'm going to tell you what. If I had my druthers and I had to jump in a car, life or death, with either a drunk person or a stoned person, I guess I go with a stoned person, because they're more worried about if they're going 45 miles an hour on that highway instead of the 65. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. See,
I
always worried about pot. You turn into Tommy Chong in the teacher. Dave.
But it's the media.
Dave's not here,
but
man.
It's not like that.
But it was.
It was funny, but it's,
when we were
it's
kids,
just not like
what
that.
I thought we'd all turn into.
Exactly.
If we kept smoking.
I am so happy to provide. I research marijuana every day. I research something to do with marijuana.
Queen Victoria smoked marijuana for her menstrual cramps.
George Washington grew hemp.
Right, because his tobacco was no good. It was rejected in London.
That's right.
So he had to grow hemp.
So, I think we finally got enough people in this United States and New Hampshire and area to expose what needs to be exposed. We've had the wool put over our eyes for many years.
Pharmaceutical industry. I've had people on the show who are talking about the pharmaceutical industry, and my friends, the whistleblower lawyers. I'm going to have Steve Cohn, who's arguably the top whistleblower attorney in the world, is going to be on next week. He's flying up from Washington.
Very nice.
And tackling the pharmaceutical industry, because when we're talking about you think about all the drugs the veterans are on. You're on this one, you're on that one, this, that, and the other thing. They're always, but it's just not the veterans; it's hospitals too. Take an SSRI. An SSRI, what is it?
Serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Uptake inhibitor. It's got an efficacy rate. It's effective 23%. A placebo is 22%. Now, let's be frank. The placebo effect is real. You actually can use mindfulness and everything to bring the placebo effect on. But just think about that. And if you're on an SSRI, keep taking it. But
oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, you just can't. What we're talking about, we're not doctors or anything, but you're just thinking, one's 23%, a placebo's 22%. And a placebo, once again, is a real effect. But you have the pharmaceutical industry. The only drug, Coumadin, has been around forever. Eisenhower's in Coumadin. They even have the Coumadin clinic. They've been trying to create blood thinners forever to replace that, but they've never really been able to because of the troubles. But when we're talking about this, that you're up against the pharmaceutical industry. When we're talking about medical marijuana, we're talking about you have the full weight of the pharmaceutical industry against you, don't you?
Correct.
And they're lobbyists.
Yes. However, the tide has turned, and I can tell you,
public opinion.
The public opinion has turned. I mean, the polls will show you that well over 60% are close to favoring full legalization because they know our state's in some financial crisis, and maybe that's the way. Number two, they realize our state, number one, is the biggest drug dealer. We have drive-by liquor stores on the. We're the biggest drug dealer in the entire state. We, the legislature, we, the state.
Well, we're also, according to the Hippo, the biggest place for heroin, and that. And the people from New York are coming up here.
Make no mistake about it. If the governor and the attorney general wouldn't have played politics with us, and we had legal access to cannabis in 2013, like the legislature intended, we may have a 30% reduction of opioid addiction because people like myself might have had legal access to cannabis before we got addicted to opioids and fentanyl.
Right.
I'm thankful I didn't die. My heart goes out to the families and the people that did die to this.
But I have to admit, even when I was talking about decriminalization stuff, I still shared a lot of the Governor Hassan's things that, people are going to, toke up and turn into Tommy Chong. Even when I was advocating decriminalization, because it should be decriminalized, and then after 3 years, legalization, because I'm sure the effects, because of the other states that have gone through this. The only objection is trafficking, like in Colorado and places. But if you didn't have the federal laws, there wouldn't be any trafficking, right?
I truly believe, I'm a constitutionalist, right. I'm a states' rights guy. I think this is an exact type of situation and case to allow the states to experiment with this to see how it works. Almost like a think tank for the states. We got Colorado. We've got a bunch of we got 23 states that have done medical marijuana.
See, I didn't know about Maine. Since 76?
76, they decriminalized. Listen, I went to a Dave Matthews concert in Boston. They decriminalized a while ago in Boston. Yeah. Anybody who knows Dave Matthews, you kind of have a nice little stoner crowd there. I'm up in the front, and I have some girls token in front of me from Northeastern or wherever they were from, and there's a cop next to me, and I'm kind of laughing. And he's like, I'm not going to write a ticket. That's a waste of my time. They're having a good time. They're not hurting anybody. And to see a police officer to say that made me realize that this is real.
It's like jaywalking in Boston. They never ticket you for that.
We're just a little, New Hampshire's just a little late to the game. We always are late to the game. But,
But until I started talking to you, I didn't really understand the issue fully. I have to admit that, I didn't understand. I just think of I don't smoke, so like I said, I had an idea, Cheech and Chong, poor Cheech and all the trouble Tommy was getting him into.
However,
Cheech was stoned too, right?
but that's a movie. That's a movie, and and folks get caught up in that, and I hope for the folks that have PTSD that I get the support. I'm telling you what, I've got people coming up from different states to come observe, to support, to testify for this. I want you to be able to get your medical marijuana card. I want you to be able to have a cookie at night or a tincture at night or something, a mint. If we could provide you that as a state, and that would give you, take you out of your pain, out of whatever it is, that's a win.
But once again, going back to, there's just these archaic ideas about even psychological pain is not on a par with physical pain. I could even cite you case law involving that, and, psychological pain. It's that I'm an Anglo-Saxon. That Anglo-Saxon, pull yourself up from the bootstraps and everything. There's no validity to psychological pain, yet people really are in psychological pain.
Until you experience it, you don't know it. Once you experience it, you realize it. Once you experience it, you share it and you advocate for it. And that's what we're doing here right now.
And a lot of people, I'm saying again, like myself, you didn't even know you had it. Unless there's somebody, and my therapist was younger generation, she's young enough to be my daughter, could recognize something like that. Where my generation, they just didn't, they either didn't, or there wasn't the research, or what. MRI is revolutionizing everything.
Absolutely.
Right. And but once again, you have a cannabinoid receptor in your brain, which has evolved over tens of thousands of years.
Which we stopped studying in the late 30s because of why? Because big
people
pharmacy
like
and
the pharmacy and all that.
The medical folks said, "Hey, no, this could." Listen.
How could I not know that? I knew everybody knows about the opioid receptor, but
I never in my life thought I'd be owning the owner of a cannabis consulting company, and this is the type of information that I've learned, and I need to share it with everybody, and that's what we do. We educate people.
I think I'm not sure. My old Rolex says it's 2:00. John, how much time do we have left?
I guess we got a lot at that.
What?
What's the clock say?
It says 1:59.
All right, why don't you wrap up?
Okay, we're going to wrap up, and then we're going to come back with Joe hosting Matt Connaughton at Large, because Matt is indisposed today. And we'll leave you with Mayor Gatzis's victory dance that he did after the inaugural. And we'll see you back at Matt Connaughton Unleashed in a few minutes.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.